In Section 8, the objective is to describe ways written resources are used to identify hazard materials and their hazards. This section is on written resources. A variety of written resources are available to assist responders in identifying hazard materials at fixed facilities and transportation incidents. Fixed facilities should have safety data sheets, inventory records, and other facility documents, in addition to signs, markings, container shapes, and other labels. At transportation incidents, first responders should be able to use the current ERG as well as shipping papers. Shipments of hazard materials must be accompanied by shipping papers that describe them. The information can be provided in a bill of lading, waybill, or similar document. The general location and type of paperwork changes according to the mode of transportation. However, the exact location of the document varies. Hazardous waste shipments must be accompanied by a uniform hazardous waste manifest document that is typically attached to the shipping papers. To understand the shipping paper name, location of the papers, and the party responsible, you can find that information in Table 2.11 on page 99. The basic description is provided in the shipping papers will follow the acronym ISHP, which is I is for identification number, S is for proper shipping name, H is for hazard class or division, and finally P is for the packing group. When you know that close approach to the incident is safe, you can then examine the cargo shipping papers. The information provided, such as proper shipping name and hazard class, can be used to identify hazards such as potential fire, explosion, and health hazards. Precautions to protect emergency responders and public can be identified using the emergency response guide or other reference sources. You may need to check with the responsible party to locate shipping papers. If the responsible party is not carrying them, you will need to check the appropriate locations. In trucks and airplanes, the papers are placed near the driver or the pilot. On ships and barges, the papers are placed on the bridge or in the pilot house of a controlling tugboat. Train crews should have train consist, which is an entire train cargo list or a train list and or wheel report. Look for the train crew first, as they should have the paperwork or the train list with them. However, if they cannot be located, you may contact the railroad through their emergency phone number for a copy of the train list. It is possible there may also be a copy of the current train list in the engine. On the train list, most railroad companies will count and list their train cars from the front of the train to the back. During pre-incident surveys, the location of the papers and how to read them for a specific rail line can be determined. Note that shipping paper information may be provided in a variety of formats, such as a fax or an email. Transborder shipments between U.S. and Mexico may be accompanied by shipping documents in both English and Spanish. To satisfy the emergency response information requirement in the U.S. and Mexico, a shipper may attach a copy of the appropriate guide page from the current ERG to the shipping papers. The information must be provided in Spanish when material is shipped to Mexico and in English when shipped to the U.S., so the emergency responders in each country will be able to understand the appropriate initial response procedures in the event of a hazard materials release. A safety data sheet is a detailed information bulletin prepared by the chemicals manufacturer or importer that provides specific information about the product. SDSs are formatted according to GHS specifications. SDSs are often the best source of detailed information about a particular material to which emergency responders have access. The sheets can be acquired from the manufacturer of the material, the supplier, the shipper, an emergency response center such as Chemtrec, or the Facility Hazard Communications Plan. SDSs are sometimes attached to the shipping papers or containers. SDS sheets are used worldwide. Relevant sections of SDSs can be used to identify potential fire, explosion, and health hazards, as well as precautions to be taken to protect responders and the public. Per OSHA, the list describes SDS sections. Section 1 identifies the chemical on the SDS as well as the recommended uses. It also provides the essential contact information of the supplier. Section 2 is the hazard identification. It identifies the hazard of the chemical presented on the SDS and the appropriate warning information associated with those hazards. Section 3 is the composition and information on the ingredients. It identifies the ingredients contained in the product indicated on the SDS, including impurities and stabilizing additives. It also includes information on substances, mixtures, and all chemicals where trade secrets is claimed. Section 4 is the first aid measure, as it describes the initial care that should be given by untrained responders to an individual who has been exposed to the chemical. Section 5 is the firefighting measures. It provides recommendations for fighting a fire caused by the chemical. Section 6 is the accidental release measures. It provides recommendations on the appropriate response to spills, leaks, or releases, including containment and cleanup practices to prevent or minimize exposure to people, properties, or the environment. It may also include recommendations distinguishing between responses for large and small spills, where spill volume has a significant impact on the hazard. Section 7 is for handling and storage, which provides guidance for safe handling practices and conditions for safe storage of chemicals. Section 8 is for exposure controls and personal protection. This section indicates the exposure limits, engineering controls, and personal protective measures that can be used to minimize worker exposure. Section 9 is the physical and chemical properties. This section identifies physical and chemical properties associated with the substances or mixtures. Section 10 is on stability and reactivity. This section describes the reactivity hazard of the chemical and the chemical stability information. This section is broken into 3 parts: reactivity, chemical stability, and other. Section 11 gives you toxicology information, which identifies toxicology and health effects information or indicates that such data is not available. Section 12 describes ecological information that provides information to evaluate the environmental impact of the chemical if it were released to the environment. Section 13 is the disposal considerations, and it provides guidance on proper disposal practices, recycling or reclamation of the chemical or its container, and safe handling practices. To minimize exposure, refer to Section 7 of the SDS. Section 14 is for transport information. This section provides guidance on classification information for shipping and transporting of hazardous chemicals by road, air, rail, and sea. Section 15 is the regulatory information, and that identifies safety, health, and environmental regulations specific for the product that is not indicated anywhere else on the SDS. Section 16 covers all other information, which indicates when the SDS was prepared or when the last known revision was made. The SDS may also state where the changes have been made to previous versions. Other useful information also may be included here. The Emergency Response Guidebook, also known as the ERG, was developed to provide guidance to firefighters, law enforcement, and other emergency service personnel who may be the first to arrive at the scene of a transportation incident involving hazardous material. The ERG will help identify the material-specific or generic hazards, and it will provide you with basic guidance on how to protect yourself and the general public during the incident's initial response phase. The ERG does not address all possible circumstances that may be associated with a hazard material incident. It is primarily designed for use at incidents occurring on a highway or railroad. There may be limited value in its application at fixed facility locations. Note, remember, operations level responders at the scene of a hazmat incident should seek additional specific information about any material in question as soon as possible. The information received by contacting the appropriate emergency response agency, calling the emergency response number on the shipping document, or consulting the information on or accompanying the shipping document may be more specific and accurate than the guidebook in providing direction for managing the materials involved. With facility documents, the Hazard Communication Standard, HCS, requires U.S. employers to maintain a chemical inventory list of all the hazardous substances. Because this list usually contains information about the locations of the materials within the facility, they can be useful tools in identifying containers that may have damaged or missing labels or markings. Several other documents and records may provide information about hazardous materials at a facility, such as the following: shipping and receiving documents, inventory records, risk management and hazard communication plans, chemical inventory report known as Tier 2 reports, and facility pre-plans. The Local Emergency Planning Committee, also known as the LEPC, is another potential source of information. LEPCs were designed to provide a forum for emergency management agencies, responders, industry, and the public to work together to evaluate, understand, and communicate chemical hazards in the community and develop appropriate emergency plans in case these chemicals are accidentally released. These plans are called Local Emergency Response Plans, or ERPs. Electronic technical resources and references have advanced with technology. Many common written resources and references are now available in an electronic format. For example, the ERG. Electronic resources have the added benefits of search features that allow information to be accessed in a more efficient manner than print resources. If the product has been identified, some of these resources can be used to determine precautions to be taken to protect responders and the public. Many references can also be accessed on smartphones or mobile devices. While electronic resource use is increasing, it may still be necessary to have print resources available should there be issues in accessing the electronic data. There are a variety of mobile weather apps that can be used to provide up-to-date weather information on mobile devices. Computer-aided management of emergency operations, also known as CAMEO, is a resource designed by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA. CAMEO is a system of software applications that help emergency responders develop safe response plans. It can be used to access, store, and evaluate information critical in emergency response. Wireless Information System for Emergency Responders, also called WISR, is an electronic resource that brings a wide range of information to the hazmat responder, including chemical identification support, characteristics of chemicals and compounds, health hazard information, and containment advice. WISR is available in different formats depending on the operating systems. It may be downloaded free of charge. The 911 Toolkit is available only for Apple devices. The 911 Toolkit app provides a variety of information that may be useful for first responders. It provides information on hydraulics, water delivery, EMS, hazmat, and NIMS ICS. It also provides checklists and quizzes. Hazmat IQ Charts is based on the popular Hazmat IQ training course. The app provides charts used to determine appropriate response to chemical incidents. The app is available for Android and Apple devices. The review question for this section is, what written resources are first responders most likely to utilize and why? See pages 98 through 104 of the manual for the answer.